And we'll see how those shreds look in just one sec. Scooping it out. Ouch. It's a little hot. Don't try this at home. Again, some of my cookie friends out there, you got the hot hands, you know what I'm talking about. And out it comes. I'm going to set this aside right there. I'm running out of space in my tiny little kitchen. And then what I want to do, let me wash a hand here. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to get a fork and I'm going to fluff this squash up so it comes apart. Before I really start fluffing it, I'm going to add a little more spice to it. I've still got a little of that spice blend from before. So I'm throwing in a little more because there was a lot of flesh there that we need to finish up. And I am going to grate a little bit of fresh nutmeg into this too, okay? This spaghetti squash, I'm leaving it fairly neutral. These aren't really big flavors. And I'm grating across the entire surface of it here. I'm not just keeping it in one spot. I want to disperse it a little bit so I don't have to do all my dispersal with a spoon or a fork. And then I just want to break up that squash. Very gently with the tips of that fork. And it's just starting to come apart, you know, like spaghetti. Once I get it broken up, I'm going to give it a little taste. And I think I'm going to throw a little pat of butter in with this as well, just to give it, again, a little bit more body. And it is shredding up beautifully. Spaghetti squash. It's a beautiful thing, okay? I'm going to add a pat of butter. I'm going to work it in. I don't want to break this stuff up too much more. Just a tiny little pat. Hey, guys out there. Steve, hanging out. I'm going to break that butter up. I just tossed it in. Usually I cut it up a little bit. So I'm just going to use my fork to break it into more pieces, and it'll blend in more efficiently if it's not just all in one piece. I don't want to do too much stirring because I'll break up this squash. As the butter's melting, you don't want to stop moving. You'll get a little grease slick in there. So keep it moving as that butter melts. And I'll break up those pieces a little more so it's a little more efficient. And just keep it moving. I don't want oily. I want that butter to become one with the squash. And the way to do that is to keep it moving. We're mounting. This is what we call it in culinary school. When we finish with butter, we keep it moving and it blends in to what you're doing. And there it is. I'm going to give it one little taste just to check seasoning here. It's actually delicious, but I'm going to pretend like it needs more. I'm going to throw a little more salt in there. It can stand it. And then I'll work that on in. Now I got a spoon, and our spaghetti squash is finished for this evening. Came out beautifully. I'm really liking the very delicate flavors. It's got a tiny little afterburn from the cayenne I used in there. It's really nice. And there's my squash, okay? It's a beautiful thing. I'm gonna kind of wipe that on down. My rim is ugly. Let me just get that. And there she is. I'm gonna put a plate on top of this just to hold the heat in. Keep it someplace warm. I'm gonna strain my quinoa because it's sitting in a little bit of water here. And I'm going to try my beans one last time. I'm hoping they're done. If they are, we're going to be very impressed because of all my beautiful timing here. Let me get one more spoon out. And we're trying a couple of beans. That one's done. That one's done. That one's kind of done. You know, they don't come out of a machine. It's a natural product. They aren't all going to have the exact same cooking time. I'm going to try a few more. He's done. He's done. I think I've done it. My timing is really working out. I'm going to strain these beans with my same setup. I've reserved all of my juices. It's almost like a beanstalk. Beanstalk. I'm going to blend that in with my chili. Because I'm just making one big old pot of chili here. And then, my pot looks a little dry here. I'm going to pull out my veggies, like I did with the lentils, right? So there's an onion, a celery, and a carrot. I got a few bay leaves to come out. I've got 4 in there now. I've got 2 types of bean in here, lentils and pinquilos. And then I've got some of my liquid here. I'm just going to adjust my chili with a little bit of that liquid. It's just a little dry. Once I'm done here, all I need to do is adjust seasoning and consistency. And I've got myself a vegetarian chili with a grain accompaniment on the side. And I've also got some spaghetti squash to serve along with it as a side. Not exactly the menu I would put on a restaurant menu or something, but it's what I got around during the quarantine. And I thought I'd turn a lesson into it, and we saw a ton of stuff today. Let me just bring this the rest of the way, and we will sum up our day and get you guys on the road. One more taste. Now, I did not season that second set of beans. I didn't salt them, I mean to say. I'm just going to add a little more salt, and it's not that it needs salt. Like if I took a bean out and licked it, it would have plenty of seasoning on the outside, but it's the interior. I need to work salt into the interior, so I'm going to work a little more salt into this. And that's about it. I want to finish with some herbs. I got a little cilantro and a little scallion. Here's a little knife thing here, okay? Cleaning scallions, I left them uncleaned here. They've got the dirt on the end. The way you clean scallions is you cut off the end, that root end. I'm gonna throw that in a stock pot somewhere. And then it's easy to peel off the nasty bits. Sometimes if you have just kind of a funky little scallion green on the end, that'll all come off. But I always take off that root end first, and then it's very easy to peel off the ugly stuff. And then I will rinse them off. Or you can just peel it as it's being rinsed. So I got a couple of scallions here, and I'm going to mix them with a little cilantro. That'll be my finish, and we will be done. With that, we'll sum it up and get it gone. I'm doing these herbs super, super thin. Let me show you my handwork here. I think you guys can see that. Let me get this off the board. I never want anything on my board if I'm cutting. All I want on my board is what I'm working on. I was talking about this in a quarantine happy hour just the other day. Work like a sushi chef. Imagine if you were at a sushi restaurant and the chef had 9 things going on his cutting board. It would be pretty gross. Fish and scallions and everything just being cut up all on one board laying out there. Work with one item, wipe it on down, work with your next item. So I'm going to work in a little bit of fresh green onion, and I can work this in at the end. I'm just going to work it in now. And then I've got a bunch of cilantro. I've already taken stems out. Sometimes, actually, cilantro stems aren't too bad if you leave them into kind of a rustic, like pico de gallo or something like that. But I also like cilantro stems for my stocks. I think they have a really nice flavor in the background of my stocks. So I tend to throw my stems into my stock pot and use the leaves for love. Stems for stock, leaves for love. So I just did a chiffonade on those, so it's kind of rustic looking, but it's still a real cut. It's not just a rough chop. It's a shave. So everything is in the pot that needs to be in the pot. I'm going to stir it on in. I'll give it one more taste. And and then we'll sum up. I like the amount of liquid I have in here. Everything's looking good. I want to point out nothing was measured today. It's all good. So, this is a mess. I got to get this out of here. My OCD kicking in badly. So basically what you guys just saw, it was a lot of stuff, right? The first thing I did was I started a spaghetti squash. That's the roasting vegetables technique, right? Or roasting any winter squash, basically. If I'm roasting like a softer vegetable, I'm just tossing it in oil, throwing it in there, and I'm using a super hot oven because I want to develop color when I roast something so people can see that it's been roasted, right? If you don't get any color on your zucchini in the oven, but you're calling it roasted veg, people are going to be wondering what's going on back there. There's no color on this thing, right? We started two types of legumes. I started a lentil. That one went really quick. I started a small version of a pinto bean here called a pinquillo. It's like a half-size pinto bean. When we started those, we just put them in water. We soaked the larger bean. We didn't soak the lentil. You do not need to soak a lentil. The cooking time's very short. But we put them in a pot with aromatics. I used bay leaf, garlic, onion, celery, and carrot, okay? Basically, those last three are mirepoix, the French term mirepoix, okay? I left them in big pieces so they could be lifted out and discarded later. I cooked those legumes until they were tender to the teeth. I left salt out in the beginning. Once they were done, that's when I worked my salt in, and I let them just kind of sit in that salty water and soak up the seasoning at that point. I cooked off a grain, and we talked about the boiling method for grains. What you saw me do is exactly what I would do for polenta, for cream of wheat, for pasta, for cooking wheat berries or any like kamut or any hard grain. You start with boiling water, you rain the grain in, and you stir it immediately. In the first few minutes of cooking, keep stirring so things don't clump up together. And then once they're kind of rolling along, you can kind of ease up on the stirring a little bit, but you still want to kind of keep an eye on. Once that was going for this quinoa, I knew it was done when a little band or a little string popped off of the edge of the grains, and you could see them. I wish you could see that, but the camera work here is never going to kind of show that kind of detail on this. So my apologies for that. But if you ever do cook quinoa, if you've ever done it before, you know what I'm talking about. Once that grain was done, I work by I can taste it for seasoning and what have you, but it's essentially done at that point, and you've got yourself a neutral grain. We also talked about sweating, okay? And I sweated off some garlic and some onion, and I added in some cumin and some chili powder in equal parts, those two, and I threw in some oregano and a bay leaf and a few garlics in there and all of that. I cooked all of that down. In this case, I added a little tomato product to it, and then we added it all together, and I came out with chili. I'm going to do another class one of these days where I talk about 8 or 9 different flavor profiles from around the world. Hey, what does Thai cuisine use? What does French cuisine use? What does Latin America use? What is, Middle East, and so on and so on? What does Asia use? What is China versus Japan and things like that, right? So we'll talk about different flavor profiles around the world. And let's see, I'm trying to think of anything else. We finished the spaghetti squash. Gosh, that was pretty much it. Let me get on here. If anybody has any questions, please throw them out in the comments. I'll get to them after we're done here, after I clean this giant pile of dishes here. I got a lot of pots and pans. Also, I want to kind of throw it out there, price of admission. Hey, I'm giving you guys the culinary lecture that I do in culinary school, right? It's what people spend thousands of dollars on every day. Or, you know, some of my students don't pay anything, but they had to be incarcerated before they got this stuff, right? So big price to pay for this stuff. I'm throwing it out there, you know, mostly because I'm going a little stir crazy in my house and I gotta get this stuff out. But the other thing, I'm trying to build a little something here. I got a little side gig that I call industry cooking classes, and I'm trying to go out and do live shows in the public and bring people along, show them what we talk about in culinary arts school. It's not what you see on food TV, and I really want to get the message out there that this stuff ain't magic, it ain't rocket science, this stuff's totally easy. You don't see me measuring. It's all technique. The recipes are about, the conversation I want to have is about the techniques behind the recipe, okay? If you could get on my page, follow me, get on my industry cooking classes page, share it with your friends, invite friends to these things if you find it's worthwhile. I'm hoping I'm putting some good information out there. I gotta say, I feel like I put a ton of technique out there today. It's a little disjointed just because I'm in my little kitchen working with what I got, but ultimately, you just keep on coming. After a while, this stuff just starts, you start recognizing patterns, and this stuff starts snowballing, and your knowledge base of the kitchen is going to get bigger and bigger, and your kitchen muscles are going to get stronger and more buffed out, right? That's what this is all about. So hang with me. I'm doing this every Monday. I don't want to do it every day. You know, I don't think my wife could handle it, but I do it every Monday, and then if I need to do something during the week, hey, I might throw an extra one out there. But please check in with me, share me with your friends. I want to blow this thing up. I really want people to cook for themselves and not just have to break open a recipe every time they need to make a move in the kitchen. I want you to have those kitchen superpowers, okay? So I think I'm going to leave it at that, guys. Let me do one more of these. Thanks very much for showing up to another Culinary Kitchen Happy Hour, and we'll see you next Monday, if not before, folks. Cheers and prost, okay? Take care, and we'll see you on the flip side. Don't forget, the party is always in the kitchen. Bye-bye, peoples.